Hi. It's it's RetroLogic. And I thought before the show started, I said to myself, Dan, it's time for a new intro. But I didn't have any ideas, so I just started the show and I said hi. So now we're going. Welcome to RetroLogic. I'm Dan, and today we have the whole crew. We got John and Shannon and Sam and not Salmon, Sam. Although I'm not convinced he's not salmon. I haven't been given enough evidence otherwise, so we'll see about that. But we're here today, and we're going to chat about some games and some stuff. And yeah, that's kind of how it goes. So how's everybody doing? Just little intros before we get rolling on things. John, what's going on, dude? You're working on a controller over there. You got a drifty controller.
Yeah, one of those Xbox controllers that I bought from the thrift store had a drifty left stick, but one of them was good, so even if I can't fix this one, I'm still on top, I think.
Yeah, how much were those a pop?
I paid $30 a piece, I think, or no, $25 a piece, and I got 4 controllers. I got 2 Xbox Elite Series 2 controllers, which I think are like $150 a piece.
Yeah, that's
normally.
Crazy.
And I got a Steam controller, which I don't own, so I was keeping that one.
That's the weird with the weird touch pads, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have the dongle though, so I'm trying to figure out how to make it run. I believe there's a firmware update you can force through it to make it Bluetooth connect. And then I also bought, what else? I bought another controller. I can't remember now what it was. But anyway, trying to fix one of the Series 2 Elite controllers. They're actually kind of cool. I don't know that I would need one. I don't play the kind of games that require adjustable sticks and rear controller buttons and all that stuff.
I could never figure out what I would want my bumpers to do.
Yeah.
I have one that has the customized thing, and I'm like, what do I play Splatoon. What do you do with that?
I don't know how much if you've held one, they're real hefty feeling. They've got a magnetic charging base that comes in the case.
Oh, that's cool.
And the sticks are actually just magnetic as well. You can just pull the stick off, and you can change. They're different heights, and they're metal as well. They're a pain in the butt to open up. They don't use screws. That's all clips inside.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, it's you feel like you're going to break it trying to get them apart, but I got it apart. I got sticks ordered. We'll see. So far, it's kind of fighting me on getting the old stick out because it's really tiny pins that are soldered in. There's 12 of them.
Dang.
So we'll
good luck.
Yeah, I'll keep you guys updated on how it goes.
Shannon, what's the haps? What's going on, dude?
Let's see here. Not much. Currently started up. Bought the Tales of Grace's F remaster. And happy to say that they did a much, 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 much better job than they did with the Tales of Symphonia remaster.
Oh, they learned their lesson.
Yeah, God, I hope so. Yeah, this one it's really snappy. I've had 0 issues. You're in and out of battles like this. There's really no loading times to concern yourself with. It just so yeah, I've been playing that whenever I have a chance.
What was that originally on? Was that a Wii game?
It was a Wii game, but only in Japan. It came over here as a PS3.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Game, and that's where I played it. It next to Symphonia, it's probably my favorite in the series. I mean, the story's fairly cliche, but I'd say it's probably got the best battle system of any of the Tales games. It just feels really good to play. But yeah, other than that, I've just got to experience Dokapon Kingdom finally. Sam finally got Tim and I to play that, but I'm sure he'll want to talk more about that. So
nice.
I'll pass that to him.
Nice. Sam.
What? I had a joke that was going to be bad. I was going to say, maybe if it was a Donkey Pond Kingdom, maybe you could get Dan into it. Maybe that's what they're...
I would be all over that, man.
That's the crossover we all need, for sure.
Yeah, that's what they're working on. That's why we haven't got a DK game in a while.
Oh, gosh. Can you imagine?
That would make me so happy, actually.
I've been praying for a Donkey Kong RPG.
Yeah. The original plan was actually a new Dokapon game, well, new to the rest of the world, released last week. Dokapon Sword of Fury, which got a Switch port back in like the fall in Japan. And I'd been looking for where the global release was and kind of accepted that it wasn't happening. Then a couple of weeks ago, a random Steam store listing showed up for it, saying coming soon, so I wishlisted it. And last week, I got an email saying, hey, it's on sale. Weirdly enough, still not on the Switch anywhere but in Japan. Not sure what's going on there. I think it's a matter of time because they have the game running on Switch. They have the English script. So
put those two together.
I don't know if Nintendo of America is slowing things down or what.
Who publishes it? Is it still Atlas?
Yeah, it's still Sting, Atlas. So I guess it's all under the Sega umbrella these days.
Yeah, they should have no problem publishing on Switch. That's weird. Maybe weird.
But yeah, the Steam version is supposed
Switch
to
2
support...
launch title, that's what it is.
The Steam version is supposed to support Remote Play Together, which means you can actually host a game and invite your friends to it, even if they don't own it. We tried to make that work, and it didn't. So that was kind of disappointing. But because it was Tim and Shannon who have Dokapon Kingdom and hadn't had a chance to play it, we played that instead, which was great.
Nice.
Yeah, Sword of Fury as a game, though, is actually really great. There are a number of things about it I actually prefer over Kingdom from my first impressions. It is interesting to note this is a port of what was originally a PlayStation 1 game, the third game in the series.
Sword of Fury is?
Yes. Kingdom is a remake of the second game. So this is kind of further along in the overall evolution, and I think it shows. Like, the game is actually a little bit better balanced. The thing I really like about it is there are more ways. There's still a lot of ways to lose everything you have, but there are more ways to diversify your wealth, so to speak. So the big thing in it, as opposed to Kingdom, is part of your total assets are treasures that you collect. And some of them also give you like abilities and stat boosts. So those go to your inventory. There's also a bank, so you can put your money in the bank, but other players can attempt to rob the bank. So there's just like, there's a couple extra layers to like how to manage the madness, which is fun.
Very cool.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of Dokapon. Obviously, I talk about it a lot. Weirdly, I just really love, these Fortune Street style games, especially when there's some other wrinkle. So I always pitch Dokapon to people as like, it's basically if you combine Fortune Street with Dragon Quest. I think that's a pretty good comparison.
Nice.
Now I just need a new concept because that's Fortune Street combined with Magic the Gathering. And it's great.
Even though Fortune Street has a DQ slime in it, so it's already kind of mixed with Dragon Quest.
Right, that's true.
I mean,
that's true.
Fortune Street's like pure economy, though. Like, there's no
it's
RPG
Monopoly,
elements, though.
Yeah, this has definitely got a lot more RPG elements than I realized going in, and that I think is what's hooking me.
Yeah.
Although I will say the computer seems to really have something out against me. I was in last place, and the computer still kept robbing me, killing me.
The computer is very try hard, even on the like lowest difficulty. They will almost like, and they always know like the exact damage calculation too. So if they know they're going to die, they'll always surrender. It's actually pretty hard to get like a full kill on the computer for that reason. But yeah, they also, I'm pretty sure, cheat.
Yeah, if you have to, the AI cheats anyway.
If you're cheating against the last place person, though, that's pretty rough.
I know.
Yep.
I was like, I think I spent more time in a coffin in the game than I did battling monsters for a while.
Yes. Well, I've been working on this little broken PSP. It's just the disk drive that doesn't work. Power's on just fine. I've got an SD card to Duo adapter coming in and a power cord, and I don't like my nub. I don't like my replacement nub is slippery. So I got to figure out.
Does it not have like the little grippy
stuff
on it?
It has little grippies on it, but Like, it just feels so slippery on my thumb.
Is it the waffle one?
I don't know. Yeah, it looks like a waffle.
Yeah.
I want like the sticky, rubbery, grippy thing though.
They're all like that though. It's a hard plastic.
I know, but I want someone to make a better one so I can attach it to my PSP.
I would look on look on Etsy or something. Somebody's probably made a
spend $25 on
rubber guy or a cap or something you could
put a little syrup on top of it. That'll stick it right up.
There you go. I'll just glue my thumb to it and never take it off. Yeah.
Or put something sticky on your thumb. Yeah. Like wear a thimble or something.
Got a Band-Aid right now. You know what? It's for my cuticle. That's all it is. I didn't hurt myself. Just got dry skin because it's the freaking wintertime. So now I got bleeding cuticles. Anywho, enough about my cuticles. Let's talk about some cute Price is Retro games. If this is your first time playing Price is Retro, this is how we play. I'm going to list off 4 or 5 games, and everybody else is going to guess what the lot is worth in total. And then everybody has their own lists, and we're all going to guess. And then whoever's the closest at the end of guessing wins. There's several AI players who are very smart. One of them guesses... we got the Ghost, who always guesses 300. Okay, see if I can get these. We got the Robot, who averages. And then we have the Dinosaur, who guesses retail prices.
There we go.
I don't know what the magic is behind the retail price one. That's all John's doing. So God bless him for that. We're going to jump right in, and we'll go ahead and start with John then. Let's do John first.
Okay.
Since I said your name last.
So I did another Dan list. That seems to be the way to go.
Let's
here
go.
Last minute Dan lists work the easiest.
Just type a word in. Who cares?
Yeah. So I did the word cyber today. So we got some cyber games, and these are all some like decently old games, which are good. That's what we're looking for here. First game is Virtual On Cyber Troopers for the Sega Saturn, complete in box.
Oh, lordy, complete in box.
The second game is Cyber Speedway, also for the Sega Saturn, complete in box. The third game is Cyber Spin for the Super Nintendo, complete in box. And the last game is Cyber Core for the TurboGrafx 16, complete in box.
Well, yeah, screw it.
Who's going first?
Shannon's going to guess first.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I'm just going to throw out a guess here. I'm going to go with 330.
Okay. Sam?
525.
Mine's kind of in between there. I got 470.
Okay. So, the actual value of my lot is $206.69.
Get out of here. There's no way Virtual on Saturn is worth less than $200.
It's actually not that bad.
No way.
So we'll run. Actually, the one that won this round is actually the Dinosaur.
Wow, not even the Ghost.
Yeah, no, the Dinosaur won its first round, I think. Guessing MSRP value of $210 for this lot of games.
Wow. Congrats. We had a name for the dinosaur. Harold? Herbert?
Leonard.
So Leonard wins this round. My list of games, the Virtual On Cyber Troopers for Sega Saturn, complete in box, $54.35. Cyber Speedway on Sega Saturn, complete in box.
I had like $200 on that one.
$26.73. Cyber Spin for the Super Nintendo, complete in box, $48.90. And Cyber Core, the expensive game of the lot for TurboGrafx 16, complete in box, $76.71.
Wow. I thought it was going to be a lot more than that, especially complete in box. Because I'm like, there aren't that many cheap TurboGrafx games. I don't think that's one of them.
That's what I'm saying. You say Saturn or TurboGrafx, I'm thinking 100 plus.
Complete in box for TurboGrafx is kind of weird too, because some games actually had a cardboard like box that the jewel case came in. Some games don't have that. Like sometimes complete in box is just the jewel case.
It's just the case. Yeah.
So it's kind of weird.
The manuals though.
Yeah, manuals.
Yeah.
Congrats, Leonard. Shannon, your turn.
All right. I broke the rules slightly. I actually have 6 games to kind of go with my theme.
There's no rules.
We've done 6 before.
Flightsy's done like 8 games.
Yeah, that's true. So these are games that came out on back-to-back console upgrades. So like from Nintendo to Super Nintendo kind of thing. But they're
the topic
same,
of today.
Basically more or less the same game or the same game name. Just in the iterations of the hardware. So the first one, and these are all loose. The first one is Star Wars Empire Strikes Back for the NES. Loose. Second one is Super Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back for the Super Nintendo. Loose. Next one is TMNT Tournament Fighters, NES. Loose. And then Tournament Fighters for the Super Nintendo. Loose. And the next group is Beret Fighter for Game Boy. Loose. And the last one is Space Marauder, which apparently is the same game, different name for the Game Boy Color. Loose.
Who's going first this time?
Sam is going first this time.
I got 240.
All right, I've got 285.
I'm going to go 375.
Oh.
I think John probably has it, unless one of the Rampages get it. Actual price is $429.10.
Wow.
And almost half of that is one of the games.
Is it NES Tournament Fighters?
It is NES Tournament Fighters, which was 200.
I lowballed it, but yeah, I thought that was what was going to drive most of it.
That was the only one I knew for sure.
Star Wars Empire Strikes Back on NES is $30. Super Star Wars Empire Strikes Back is $14.28. Tournament Fighters, like I said, for the NES, $200. For Super Nintendo, $18.43. The Beret Fighter for Game Boy. This is one I wasn't familiar with until I was kind of looking up this, but loose was $26.47. But the Game Boy Color version, a Space Marauder, give it a new name, and it's $139.92.
Oh my gosh!
So yeah, I took that round. The dinosaur was pretty close to Dan's guess at 275, and the robot would have came in. Let's see, it came in at 234. So, yeah, definitely.
You won. Yeah, for sure. All right, Sam's list.
All right, I've also got a word here, but it's also keeping in mind that it's the middle of winter. You might be missing the sun. Yeah, my list starts off with Solar Crusade for the CDI.
Nice.
Loose. We've got, loose. Mixing up the condition here, so pay attention.
I like it. I like it.
Solar Striker for the Game Boy, complete.
Oh.
Boktai 2, Solar Boy Django for the Game Boy Advance, loose.
Let's go.
And Solar Eclipse for the Sega Saturn, complete.
I don't know what that is. So my guess first, I'm going to go 260.
260 for Dan.
Then John.
I think I'm going to go 325.
And I have 220.
Oh, kind of all over the place.
220. All right. The total is 452.46.
Oh my gosh.
So John had the highest guess. I believe he takes this one again. Solar Crusade for the CDI loose is $179.48.
Okay.
Lordy.
It wasn't even close.
Solar Striker for the Game Boy complete, $63.69. Of course,
okay,
the loose game's pretty cheap, and I think we all know that by this point. That's kind of why I went with the complete. Boktai 2 Solar Boy Django for the GBA loose, $185.30.
Yeah, that got me.
And Solar Eclipse for the Sega Saturn complete, $23.99.
Yeah. These are all over the place for me.
Yeah, sometimes it evens out, right?
The dyno was only a 165 on this lot.
Yeah, no way. All right, so I did the Dan method as well. The famous Dan method, named after me. All of my games, you go on adventures. Not an adventure, but several adventures. It has to have the S on it to qualify. So we have Rocket Knight Adventures for Sega Genesis, complete in box. Zelda 4 Swords Adventures, GameCube, for complete in box. Star Fox Adventures for the GameCube, complete in box. And Kinect Adventures for the Xbox 360, complete in box. And John guesses first.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to do 200 even.
Okay.
You suck. That's what I was going to do.
Want to go up or down?
I'll go 210 then.
I got 170. We're pretty close together.
Yeah. So actual retail price is $184.
Wow.
And I think that means Sam by like $1.
Unless the dyno takes
Unless
it,
the dyno, yeah.
Because I'm off by 14, John's off by 16.
Yeah.
So the dyno guessed what Shannon guessed.
Wow.
But the robot actually wins.
The robot, yeah.
Because it averaged all of ours.
Mm-hmm. So
hey, what is his guess?
Let's see. He's only $9.33 off.
Wow.
So he beats Sam's and mine.
Goodness.
So actually there's a tie.
Yeah.
But I guess since I'm the only human player that I win.
Humans break ties.
That's right.
Let me do my breakdown real quick.
Human privilege.
We've got Rocket Knight Adventures at $77. Zelda 4 Swords at $64. Star Fox Adventures for $38. And Kinect Adventures for $3.
Or if you go to the thrift store, you can buy like 1 billion of them for $3.
It's a bargain at half the price.
I think
I
the last
actually
time
didn't
I
even
went...
include it in my calculations.
Yeah. They give them away for free at the Game Over booth at Classic Game Fest. Just take them.
There was the last time I was at the thrift store where I go the most. I think they had like 15 copies of it on the shelf.
Yeah. My thrift stores always have Wii Fit boards too.
Yes, Wii Fit boards, Wii Fit, and 360 Adventures.
Always. Oh, another good round. Congrats, John. And congrats, Leonard, for his first win.
That's only my second win of this whole season. And if the Rampage would have won, they would have taken over wins. They've actually won. Shannon and the Rampage have won the same amount of times.
Coming down to it.
We're going to have to step it up.
Yeah, we got to get better at it. Today's topic is about console iterations. We're inspired by the Switch 2 launch, or Switch 2 announcement, and just how close to the original a console's predecessor can be and still call it a new console. And we have some community couch
questions
and answers to talk about. Thank you for jolting my brain back to life at this late night. So let's go do that right now, and we will be back in just a minute. Yeah, so Switch 2 was announced officially by Nintendo and not, a bunch of leakers and rumors and all that stuff, which I always find hard to... I mean, this isn't the topic, but I'm not a fan. Not a fan of leakers, not a fan of rumor mongers. It feels like they're just out for clout because nobody benefits from that. What are you getting? You get to announce a thing that's going to be announced already earlier than everybody else? Congrats. And then you just piss off a whole marketing department and like some fans that didn't want to be spoiled. So, not a fan.
Yeah, this day and age, it's pretty hard to be on the internet and not get these leaks.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something out there.
It sucks. It's annoying. Anywho, John dropped in our community couch section of our Discord, which, by the way, if you want to join the Discord, it's free. It's family friendly. It's not family friendly. We cuss, but it's still fun. It's fun for gamers and people who want a place to just talk about games and avoid a lot of drama, because we are decidedly drama free and non-toxic. You can go to my Blue Sky account at retrologicgames.bsky.social, and in my bio there's a Discord link. You can hit that and join the Discord and come chat with us and talk about stuff on our community couch. Anywho, John says, time to dust off the old community couch. What are your opinions on console iterations? Do you prefer the model of a console iteration that we usually get from Nintendo, something new and different? Or do you prefer the PlayStation Xbox route, same but more powerful? Also, do you like mid-generation iterations like Pro models, or do you skip those? Let us know. And we have several answers. But first, let's go around the horn here and just talk about sort of our thoughts on what we prefer in a new console generation, and whether or not we find Pro models of the same generation to be something that's interesting to us. John, what about you? What do you think?
So, I usually buy most things, at least Nintendo and PlayStation wise. Xbox, I've kind of fallen off after 360. I did buy an Xbox One, but I bought that for my son. But for the most part, I generally buy at least the original model. In Nintendo, I usually buy the upgraded mid-generation. Well, I guess this time around, since there was a mid-generation upgrade,
they're usually
for the Switch.
For Nintendo, it's only been their handhelds up until the Switch.
Well, with the Wii, they did a mid-gen.
Oh, they did one with the Wii, huh?
Yeah, they gave us that. What was it? The Wii Family
version.
That was a downgrade.
That was a downgrade.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean.
The Super Nintendo had the miniaturized version.
Yeah, that's right. I guess they did kind of do that.
Loader.
Yeah, early on they did, huh?
They're just even more minor.
But that's also not
to forget about them.
Like with the it's almost exclusively like a cosmetic change.
I think the GameCube had new colors.
Well,
until the handhelds gave us sort of like screen upgrades or like bigger screens.
With the console, it's been traditionally downgrades. So like the SNES Junior is actually worse than the original model, with like some, I guess like a downgrade to the video out. It doesn't have like some of the things in it. And then the Wii, we just kept getting worse models of the Wii. The first iteration, the first new iteration got rid of GameCube compatibility, and then the last iteration you couldn't do any, you couldn't go online with it. I don't think, like, it was just
that's true of the PlayStation 3 as well, at least as far as features. Now, those early models did have a really bad habit of overheating, so
yes.
Even with the PS3 though, you weren't getting like a graphical upgrade in any way.
Yeah, but I'm saying it was like the Wii. They took away the backwards compatibility in the later ones.
But I think the PS3 though is even labeled slim, which to me indicates like cheaper, sleeker.
Yeah, there's actually features. 2 versions of that too, because there was a super slim. It didn't even have the automatic disc tray thing loader. It just had a sliding door on top, and you set a disc in,
which is wild that they did that. Handhelds though go the other way. Since the Game Boy, getting every handheld iteration has been an improvement from the Game Boy Pocket being a better screen and smaller and taking less batteries, and then your DS.
Was the Micro an improvement over the SP?
Not really. I think that one was kind of niche.
Maybe not, but that's also kind of the same thing as like a Slim, right? Like it's pretty unique. I actually am surprised the Micro ever existed.
It was very late.
It didn't really have a need. The DS was already out.
Exactly.
It was kind of a weird way for them to try to keep the Game Boy Advance as still having another pillar.
4th pillar or whatever. Yeah. 5th pillar. And then with DS was a vast improvement with the DS Lite and the DSi. And
the XL.
Yep.
Seems like the DS really flourished with upgrades. Seems like every 2 years they would put out a new iteration that just made it even that much better. Like to the point where if you don't have a DSi XL, like I would buy one before I would buy any other form of DS if you want to play DS games.
I was never a fan of the XL versions just because I feel like at least back then the point of a Nintendo handheld was like, I'm gonna throw it in my pocket and take it with me, and you could do that with every Nintendo handheld until some of the XL models that just got a little too bulky for me. Which is why when they upgraded to the final version of the 3DSs, I guess they weren't the final versions, but they started doing the new 3DS and new 3DS XLs. I went for the smaller version. I was never a huge fan of the giant, like, monster DSs. Although we didn't pretty. But
I don't even think we got the smaller version in the US, did we?
Yeah, we did.
Of the new 3DS?
Yeah, it was pretty limited sales, and now they're like impossible to find. But we did. We got them.
I was thinking that we just had the XL version, and then Japan had like the
In fact, in the US, the Pokemon Red and Blue releases came with they launched with new 3DS, not XL versions with Pokemon Charizard and Blastoise faceplates. So they did, and Animal Crossing had its own launch with the faceplates and all that.
I mean, if you wanted to play like the 2 games that required
Xenoblade,
Xenoblade and Minecraft. Minecraft, I think.
Or if you wanted to play Super Nintendo games from the store.
So crazy.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. I don't know why it was locked behind like that. You're telling me the 3DS didn't have enough power to play Super Nintendo games?
They really should have. Like Hyrule Warriors only really played well on the new 3DS.
Right.
So I don't know why they just didn't say, hey, this is only new 3DS, because it really didn't play well on the original 3DS. So,
well, and there are rumors, not to talk about rumors again, that there was a more substantial mid-console generation upgrade planned for the Switch, but they were limited by like chip access and chip shortages, so they were just like, well, here's an OLED screen, call it a day.
I am not a fan of the idea of pro consoles or mid-generation I think ever since I was a kid, to me, a lot of my perspective on this is I just want to save money. But ever since I was a kid, like even the idea of a new console generation actually bothered me more than it excited me. Because effectively the way I saw it was, now you have to put more money towards something else before you can get the new games. It was like a greater money barrier towards new games. As somebody who has never really been attracted by teraflops and graphics and things, that just always felt bad to me. Like, now I'm going to have to save up that much longer if I want this new game, because I have to get a new system if I want to play it.
Right.
And the mid-generation console takes away the thing. To me, it's all about the games. And if you take away that reason to get access to new games, I don't see the point. Now, you could argue that there are cases like Hyrule Warriors where it's like, effectively, you want the new hardware to play this on. But then that just splits your user base in two. Like,
right.
It almost seems to me like these upgrades are either a fake new generation that they're just not being honest about or not pushing as much as they could, or just a way to get some extra sales from people who will buy the new thing because it's new.
Right. And Nintendo's no stranger to doing the Xbox PlayStation thing with a new generation, where it's essentially the same system. We're just making it the next gen of graphical power and online capability, or whatever the new thing is. And maybe there's a gimmick or two thrown in there as well. But for Nintendo, it's largely been since the N64, it's been some sort of pretty major change to either the controller or, some capability or some gimmick that they gave you that really made it worth the buy. So to the point where console generation between Nintendo systems, you saw some rare. You rarely saw games cross over, right? Unless it was a very intentional thing, like Twilight Princess. Since the Super Nintendo to N64 generation, where nothing carried over, that's kind of been the way for those consoles on the Nintendo side. Whereas, as I said, PlayStation and Xbox stayed. For this, the Xbox controller, since the S controller on the original Xbox, they shifted some buttons around, but it's pretty much the same controller. There's not a lot there.
They got rid of the black and white buttons, and pretty much.
To be fair, that is the game controller now. That's
right,
what everything is.
That's true. And PlayStation shifted things around a little bit, starting with 4. And even 5 is different. And then Nintendo is just start brand new. Who cares? Just throw some new weird thing at it. Excuse me. So my question is what do you prefer? Because with the Switch, we're very much getting it's the Switch, and it's better in some ways,
that we know of. There could be still some things we don't know. They were pretty limited on what they shared.
Yeah,
There's also that extra USB port, which opens up potential for some wacky peripherals, if nothing else.
That's what I think we're looking at, and they did that with the Switch. The Switch itself, once you got beyond what the console was, it leaned on things like the Ring Fit, Ring-Con, and Labo, right?
Just a con on the end of everything,
right? To throw the weirdness, to throw that Nintendo weirdness back into it. So Yeah, I mean, I hope they continue that with the Switch too, where we get some Labo-ish.
Yeah, I think we will. I mean, you still have a company that's releasing an alarm clock, for goodness sakes, you know. Like I think that we will see some surprises with it, but I think for Nintendo to have gone, all right, well, now we're going to just like, how do you not continue with a Switch,
right?
Or at least some kind of hybrid, because they're dominating that market, and that is a market that is still like, it's not going to go away. I think back to like the Wii. By time the Wii was winding down, people were like, a lot of people were like, all right, I'm kind of over the Wii controllers, right? I'm kind of over the motion stuff. I can now bowl a perfect game sitting on my couch, flicking my wrist just right or whatever. And so, they might, it just what people are kind of done with it. So, okay, Wii U, whatever, but mobile gaming is not going the way of motion controls, right? Like there's now all of a sudden not, people are like, oh, I hate gaming on the go now. If anything, it's going to continue to build. Right. And so unless Nintendo's like, all right, we're going to start making 2 consoles again. And I think people would be like, what are you doing? I don't want to buy 2 consoles anymore.
I don't think they're going to do that.
They're resting more on their IP too, though.
Yeah. Well, I do think that approach of like make it a peripheral or an add-on takes a little bit of the fire out, because it's low stakes. Like Nintendo doesn't have, they don't feel like with the Wii U, for better or worse, it's like we have to make games that use this because we made it an integral part of our system.
Right.
Ring Fit did pretty well. Wii Fit did pretty well. I mean, the balance board is a peripheral too. But those are the exceptions. I think when you see other stuff like, think about the Game Boy Advance. That's very much a pretty play it safe successor to the Game Boy Color, I guess, but the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color. And they did do some wacky stuff with like the e-reader, but it really died pretty fast because, I mean, you could say it's just not a very great idea, but I think also because they really didn't have to commit to it. So
yeah, they are playing it safe. I don't think that that's like, I don't know that that's like a bad thing necessarily. I just think that like,
it's probably a good thing.
Business wise. But you're right. I do miss the wind was taken out of my sails a little bit when it was like revealed that it's like, oh, okay, it's another Switch. It's not some other weird thing.
It's one of those things where if you really like, I phrase this question that Nintendo's always doing something kind of crazy and different, but it's really not the case when you look back through Nintendo's history. They have more kind of iterative type of console releases than you think.
Right.
When you look back at like the Super Nintendo replacing the NES, it was basically an NES but more powerful. And 64 was basically a more powerful Super Nintendo, but it added 2 controller ports so you could play multiplayer, 4 players. And the GameCube also was just a more powerful, and 64 didn't even really, it still had 4 controller ports. But the one thing that happened is when you look at their iterative consoles, every single one of them sold less than the one before. So it kind of drove Nintendo to have to change their philosophy on that because they weren't winning the power race anymore. So it made them think outside the box, which is why we got the Wii. And they kind of separated themselves out of the same market as everyone else, and they wanted to target a different audience. And with the Wii U not being as successful, it kind of triggered them to move in a different direction again because they tried going iterative. Just go, let's make the more powerful Wii. It still relies on, heck, they didn't even really, you can still use Wii Remote controllers. So with the Switch, I would say that if this new Switch doesn't go over as well as the old Switch does, that's when we'll see the crazy Nintendo come back out and say, okay, we're going to reinvent the the console for our, new audience that we're going to be going after next.
Yeah.
So I think it really makes sense whenever you look back at how the history of Nintendo and why they do the things they do. They don't always, they're not just making these changes because they want to be the zany, crazy, console maker. They make those changes out of necessity to try to get sales again. Because if you look at the GameCube, man, that thing, I think it only sold 26 million units. It was already on the downhill from there. They had to do something. If their next console halved again, you'd be looking at dying out.
Right.
Well,
that
to
makes
my
sense.
point, another one of those peripherals that was kind of dead in the water real fast and basically was a proto Wii U was the GameCube GBA connector.
Yeah.
There are 3 games that used it.
Right.
Well, and again, I think it would have been more prevalent if the GameCube had sold better. So I think they were already bailing out of the GameCube pretty early. It was very similar to the Wii U. We only had the GameCube for a very little amount of time before the Wii popped out.
It's the same problem as the Pro consoles. You're splitting your user base in two. There's people who are willing to buy the peripherals or who already have it, especially after it's introduced. If you make another game with it, you've still got to sell a lot of people on the peripheral. You're selling to a smaller group of people than just people who own the system.
Yeah.
To John's point, Nintendo handhelds, have kind of always been successful. And so if you look through that through line, it's always kind of been the same thing, right? You have a screen and a couple buttons, fewer buttons than your home console. And then you get, color, and then you've got backlight and more powerful, and then you have 2 screens, and now one of them's in 3D and a touch
the
screen.
DS was pretty crazy, and it also did not do well at launch.
It was crazy, but it wasn't. But it was kind of a logical next step. What else are you going to do? Just make a bigger screen? You could do that.
Well, I don't know if I'd say logical. I think it kind of threw people off. People didn't know what to do with it.
The next step is the PSP.
Right, which is why a lot of people wrote off the DS when they first saw the PSP and thought, well, now Sony's going to take charge of the handheld market.
I guess maybe it wasn't sure, a bigger screen would be the logical next step. But adding a touchscreen I think adding a touchscreen was a logical next step for at least for the way Nintendo does things, to try to mix things up and add different play styles. But yeah, I guess I see your point with the DS, but it wasn't because the Game Boy Advance was such a failure. No. I think that they were sort of they grabbed onto this idea and then they found it to be really useful and they kept working with it,
Sometimes I think that part of what Nintendo does though as well is say, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we could do this? And I think that's that toy maker mentality.
Exactly.
That they have sometimes hey, we really want to do a game that does this. We could make it a Mario game or we could make it a Zelda game. But if we could use a touchscreen or we could, control Link with a stylus or whatever it might be, or, you just move the controller and Link will swing his sword.
Yeah.
I think there's part of that too. And so, I think that at some point Nintendo's just we'll just kind of do whatever we need to do to make the games we want to make.
Right.
And sell it to the people that we want to be playing our games. So I think there's some of that, but in the end, they're also still a business. And right now, I think this is the only move they could really make. But I still think, to Sam's credit, I think that where we'll still see that Nintendo kind of craziness is peripherals or those, hey, one morning we're finding out we're going to be folding cardboard and playing piano on it or something, it's just going to be something out of left field that we're not even expecting. I know we're not really digging into any of the rumors and any of that, but I think one of the things that they semi showed off, it appears to be, is the idea that we have a mouse now, that we can use, one of the Joy-Con as a mouse, and that opens up a lot of possibilities for
and
a lot
that's
of
built
different kinds of
in.
games.
Like, that's not a peripheral you have to buy. You can design games around the fact that you have two mice.
Right.
Like, that's pretty cool. Who knows what you could do with that?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, 2 is interesting because, I mean, a mouse is pretty well-worn territory. People have been playing games on PC with mice for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But that also means it could just be really useful for, like, ports.
Sure. People have been playing Nintendo games with the mouse for a long time.
Yeah. I just want Mario Paint 2. That's all I want in life. That's all I'm here for.
You want Mario versus Wario?
Yeah. Should we jump into some of these questions? Lemmings. Definitely want lemmings.
Sure.
Or is the answer to our questions? I'll go ahead and do the first one. If y'all want to pull up the channel, we'll go around the horn. Rysol Jew says, I prefer mid-gen iterations like the PS, Xbox, but I generally get the iterations if there is an improvement on battery or screen. Only one that I didn't get was a Steam Deck OLED because it was just a sunk cost of $900 after selling the original. I guess cost also factors in. I usually get everything at launch if available. Yeah, that's also a big thing too that Sam was talking about, where cost comes into it. Depending on where you are in life, and if you're like a college student or a teenager, or if you're, older and have disposable income, you might be able to afford the iterations or not. When I got the first console iteration of the Switch, which was basically just like, what did they even do? They just like made the...
Well, they put out a model that was a better battery.
After the light, I think. And
it
had similar
so there was the light,
battery life.
Better battery life, and maybe was the kickstand improved on that one or no? Or was that still bad?
I don't remember.
It doesn't even have a special name. It's a different SKU, but it's
yeah.
It actually doesn't even have a
better battery.
It actually doesn't even have a different battery. The screen got an improvement that didn't require as much battery power to operate.
I picked that up only because GameStop was doing some crazy deal with it. It was like 200 and what was it? It was 300 for the new Switch, and they were giving you like 220 for your old Switch. And I was like, okay, for the price of a game, I'll go get a new system.
The Switch OLED is to date the only time that I have bought a piece of hardware that any model of video game system that I already owned.
I was just saying that cost for sure factors into how people spend their money on these things. So I'm still shocked that anyone is buying the PS5 Pro at that price.
Well, and I will say too, like the utility I've had when it comes to those like mid-console generations is it's great when you're a late adopter a lot of the time. If sometimes there's not even that much of a price reduction on the original model. I mean, you might be able to find one used, but then you're taking on all the risks associated with that. A lot of the Nintendo handhelds I got mid-generation, and I got better hardware. And the other side of that is you'll find some really cheap games that you've been missing out on that are really good, and you'll get recommendations from people. So that's how my experience was pretty much with every handheld, just about, except the Game Boy Advance, because I had a Game Boy Pocket, and I got that around the time Pokemon was coming out. I had a DS Lite that I got with with Phantom Hourglass, the special edition with the Triforce on it, and my 3DS XL, which I got mid-generation as well.
As say, some people wait until the iteration comes out to get their first version of it.
Especially if the launch titles don't grab you, it's kind of like, you can wait.
Well, like with the PlayStation 5, there really wasn't a huge push to buy one for a lot of people because they were still putting most of the games on the PS4. Even today, you can still buy most of them.
I don't think that's changed much.
Yeah.
No, a lot of people are saying that like it's hard for them to justify a PS5, and now they're talking about PS6, and you're like, wait, where's my PS5 games?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't get a upgrade from our PS3 to a PS4 until the PS4 Pro came out, and then we were getting one for the kids for Christmas, and we ended up just getting a Pro at that time because even the price wasn't that big of a difference at the time.
See, that's why it boggles my mind that the PS5 Pro, it's so expensive.
It is
$700 US or something, $600 without a disk drive.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's $700 without a disk drive.
Just
so then you got to buy it.
And the games are $70.
Yeah.
Games being $70, I don't even have that big of a problem with. Like that's just inflation. But lordy.
Well, yeah, it's honestly just a natural. They need to cost $70 because they've been $60 for so long.
Yeah, it's better than trying to push day one season passes.
Yeah, I'd rather pay $70 straight up than some kind of like,
I'd also rather my studio stay open and produce games.
Right.
Preach.
Also true.
Sam, do you want to read Solo's comment under RetroGroove?
Solo says, considering how hugely successful the Switch was, I am hearing people say Nintendo played it safe and smart with this new console. I don't see that as a bad thing at all, as I feel if it is not broke, don't try to fix it. The Switch is being modeled by other companies to have an entry that is more powerful will be great. Would rather have something that brings more games to play better and more third-party releases than the next whimsical features that may or may not stick. Can't help but think back to all the comments of the Mario... Not Mario,
I think he's talking about
MK1,
the original...
Mortal Kombat 1.
No, I think he's talking about the original Switch.
MK1?
Mark 1.
Mark 1.
Yeah, Mark 1 Switch.
Wasn't it Mortal Kombat 1 that like...
I think he's talking about Mortal Kombat 1.
I first thought Mario Kart because Nintendo, but yeah. MK1. The MK1 pics of people saying, but Nintendo fans say graphics don't matter.
Right.
Oh, maybe he is talking about that.
Yeah, I think it is Mortal Kombat. That was a pretty huge deal. It was jarring watching that game run on the Switch.
Yeah. And I could see where he's going. Like, I think the biggest cry of most people that play the Switch are that they want a more offering from third party. So like if you can get the Switch 2 to be able to play more third party games and stay at least somewhat closer to the current generation of consoles that are out there, you might have a better chance of getting more of those ports and have them actually work better than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah.
It's pretty hit or miss.
People need to be careful what they wish for, because the people that really want to play all these third-party games at, and have it look just as good as if they were buying it on other systems. You better be ready to pay more than a PlayStation 5 Pro.
Well, and that's the thing, right? That's the thing is
battery life that lasts 10 minutes,
That's what I don't think people understand is Nintendo is not only giving you the console, but there's a screen and a battery attached to that thing that the other console manufacturers don't have to give you. So they're essentially putting more R&D into this product, and you're expecting it to sort of compete with that. Also, Nintendo doesn't need third parties.
Not as much as the other companies do.
They're not going to cater to your need to play a third-party game on the system. They're going to flood it with their own awesome first-party software.
Well,
third parties will show up.
Indie games.
Third parties will show up how they can, and you'll just deal with it. I mean, it's not the best system in the world, but it works.
No,
and if I can play Zelda on it, then
Switch,
fine.
Yeah, I think the Switch is a good example. Like, I don't play a ton of like the AAA, massive game.
Me neither. I play very few.
And so, what few I do have a PlayStation 5, but I don't So I don't need that from my, and you're right. I don't think Nintendo needs that as much as the other ones do. Nintendo put out almost a game a month.
Yep.
For the entire 7 years or whatever we're on of the Switch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is incredible. Whether or not you thought they were all hits or not, you know, is debatable. But I mean, when was the last time you could say that PlayStation put out more than like 3 games in an entire year?
I mean, I played Doom and Doom Eternal and Borderlands 3.
Yeah, those games played
Switch.
fine. They were serviceable.
And The Witcher 3. And they're fine. They're not going to win any awards, but they're totally playable.
I don't think anyone's asking for them to look the same. I think they just want to be able to play them. So, I mean, we gave a good example here. Our Solo did with Mortal Kombat 1. Obviously, that game was not even playable when it released.
Well, and really, you do have to ask, why is that? I mean, some people immediately jump to the conclusion, oh, it's because the Switch hardware isn't powerful enough. But, like, look at other games that run fine.
Yeah,
that's true, too.
It totally could have been an amount of time.
Is it the game's fault or the hardware's fault?
It's the developer's fault.
The developer.
So, like, kind of what Shannon's saying, you kind of put yourself out there that you would play all those third-party games on your PlayStation before you would play them on Nintendo.
Exactly.
So, but that's for the person that has multiple consoles.
True.
So that's not the average gamer. Nintendo's trying to kind of scoop up some of those people that, you know, maybe would buy a Nintendo if some of those third parties were available and don't want to go buy a Nintendo and a PlayStation or a Nintendo and an Xbox.
I only have a Switch. I don't have any other modern consoles.
You're the guy that they're trying to get if he's on the fence.
Yeah. You know, like,
I missed out on a lot. But did you ever feel like you had nothing to play, though?
No.
And that's what I mean. So, you know.
Oh, yeah, but there's always those. You have your first-person shooter folks that are going to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox.
Sure.
Because they've been groomed to do so for the last
your sports,
10 years.
Yeah.
Same with sports.
If they already have that, they might look over at Nintendo and say, oh, maybe I'll buy a Switch because that new Zelda looks really cool.
Right.
They're not, you know what I mean? Like, cool. That's all Nintendo wants.
I think we'll see more, at least, especially at the start of Switch 2, I think you'll see more ports, more current ports.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
And I think you probably see some more.
Every generation, there is more at the start because they want to feel it out. I mean, even the Wii U had good third-party support for
big time,
a couple months
at the begining.
It will be cool. It will be cool to see like some last gen Final Fantasy stuff on the Switch 2. Some maybe even like Starfield. You know, like some stuff that was missed. Yeah. That would be really cool.
And as long as it plays decently, I think that, you know, I think you're right. I think that's what a lot of people are hoping for is just stuff that plays well. Mm-hmm. But I think you got to look at companies have to figure out how to optimize. You know,
that's what it is.
You can't come at a game and expect that you're going to be able to have a 500 gigabyte game for the Switch either.
I really wonder about, actually, because it's coming out soon, is Monster Hunter Wilds.
Right.
Because we know, especially that franchise, Capcom doesn't do this with everything, but we know that franchise, they want it on Switch. They made a Switch Monster Hunter. That's what Rise was. It was designed for Switch.
Split it into two
because
now.
They couldn't put Worlds on Switch. Or at least they determined they didn't want to.
It'll be on Switch too, probably.
At least at some level, right? Is it going to look the same? Probably not. But is it going to play well? And that's different. It's like anybody can put up with. I think. Well, I shouldn't say anybody. Most people, hopefully, can put up with like lower level graphically, as long as it doesn't look.
A big part of that too is Monster Hunter as a series has a lot of roots on handhelds. It really took off on the PSP in Japan. So I think that's part of it too. They want it on a handheld system.
Yeah. And it's just got to play well, right? Like it's just got to got to handle well.
I think Nintendo, if they can at least get the Switch 2 to have similar power to a PlayStation 4 is a huge win. Just because if you look at, it's really kind of hard to tell I mean, there's going to be snobs out there. They're going to totally blast this comment, but there's not a huge graphical difference between the PlayStation 4 graphics and a PS5, like to the naked eye.
Right.
Obviously, the fidelity is way greater on the PS5, but as far as how it looks, like just looking at it, it's definitely playable, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Well, and most of the PS5 hardware was designed to be like faster, not necessarily like higher fidelity, and they used that for some of the PS5 games, like the last Ratchet and Clank was like crazy fast.
Since they're still making most companies are still making a PS4 version of a game alongside a PS5 version. Yep. I think Nintendo benefits greatly if they can even get close to that kind of performance and power, just because they'll already be kind of in that window.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be just like when the PS3 came out and people were still making PS2 games and then porting them to Wii. So
yes,
you were getting like all these cool PS2 games on the Wii. That's what it's going to be like.
The thing too, that screen is, as best I can guess, not a 4K screen.
No.
So you don't need to render. The point is you don't need to render graphics in 4K to display them on the Switch 2 because it wouldn't matter anyway.
Exactly.
Right. I'm thinking just as far as processing power, you want to be able to process a game in the same manner as at least a PS4, because that gets you at least in the current, minds of developers, whereas the Switch is kind of limited for the most part to like PS3, Xbox 360 generation graphic of games. If you're not Nintendo and you don't know the complete ins and outs of how to develop a game for it, for the majority, the newer ports that we saw that were made for the current generation didn't work as good as, say, ports of games that are started out on PS3, Xbox 360, but got reported to, PS4 later. So if they can at least get somewhat close to that, they'll benefit greatly by being in the minds of developers on how, they won't have to make a special stab at making the game. They won't have to hopefully won't have to hire a third-party port house to bring it over like most of these large games had to do in order to work. It might make it to where we get even closer day-to-day release dates with current consoles. Switch got pretty close with a lot of things, but there were still a lot of games that were like, well, here's PS5 version. Well, you'll get the Switch like 8 months from now. We'll talk about it later. Or just not even at all, like Midnight Suns.
Yeah. We'll have to see.
Well, I think one thing we can safely assume is that it'll run Skyrim, and they will re-release Skyrim.
My gosh.
And Doom.
And Doom.
Lordy.
Skyrim Switch 2 edition.
Drex 1981. Drex 1981 says, the only iteration I was interested in was the DS Lite, which was a great one. That was a massive step up over the regular DS. I could care less about the PS4 Pro, PS5 Pro. My OG Switch is serving me just fine. Yeah, that was true. The DS Lite is what they should have launched with.
Actually, I waited until the DS Lite. Not that I really knew what was coming out, but I didn't really like the look of the original DS.
Yeah.
And it was at the time too where I was newly married, and so I was like, I'll just wait on it. And
there was also a price drop.
On the original DS, did the GBA slot, was that big enough to fit the whole cartridge?
Yes. So that's the big difference.
That always bothered me about the Lite.
Yes.
Of course, it was kind of a throwback to playing Game Boy games on your Game Boy Advance and just having it stick out. Really
That's why it came with a cartridge cover, so you could forget about it and just play DS games.
Well, the DS, until we got the DS Lite, was right around the time we got some good first-party games.
That was how I played my GBA games, because I never had an SP, so I wanted an actual lit-up screen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I had my GBA broke, and then when I did get a DS Lite, I could go back and continue playing, and they were still releasing Game Boy Advance games even at that point.
Yep. John, did you get a DS at launch like I did, like a big fat one? Yeah. that thing felt. It felt so the clamshell felt so fragile, and it was so sad because
so bulky.
I liked the thing. I thought it was really cool. I was missing software though. I wish I had more software at launch. But I just remember being like, man, this thing's cool, and I can put it in my pocket and all. But they gotta redesign this thing. I remember thinking that, and then when the DS Lite came out, I was like, yes, thank God. Oh my gosh.
I had the launch black and silver one with the Metroid Prime Hunters demo, and I wrecked my car and I left it in there when they picked it up because I totaled it out. So the insurance company got a free DS, and then I just didn't buy a DS until the DS Lite. I didn't play any handheld games until the Lite came out, and then I bought one.
There was nothing to play until New Super Mario Bros. And then whatever.
You didn't want to play Mario 64 with a D-pad?
I did play that, and I had played that game to death on the N64 already, so I was like, let's get a real game. Let's go. I played the mini game.
You can play as Wario.
That's true.
Yep. And Yoshi.
It's a rare instance. Your Wallet's defense attorney says, I kind of just don't really take notice of them. Thank you, Wallet defense attorney, aka Flightsy, for helping us to not spend money.
He's the perfect example of your college kid that's not not buying iterations.
You have your console, and honestly, more power to him. You don't need to spend the money. Plays all the same games. Shannon, do you want to read Double D's comment?
Sure. I definitely get more excited about Nintendo console iterations, but we'll also get the next PlayStation console as well, just because that's where the new games are going to be. I will say that I actually delayed my purchase of the PS5 for a while because initially there weren't many games that I was interested in that weren't also available on the PS4. Yep, truth. Regarding mid-gen iterations, it's all about the bang for the buck. When the PS4 Pro came out, I was upgrading my TV to a 4K one, so I was motivated to upgrade to the Pro as well to get the most out of the TV, and was very happy with that decision. I also got a Switch Lite during the pandemic because my wife was hogging my Switch with Animal Crossing, but now it's just collecting dust. I never got an OLED Switch because I primarily play it docked. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. That's a good point about buying a console because your current console's being used elsewhere. Especially if you have a family. I can't wait for the Switch 2 to come out because now that my kids are old enough to sort of get video games on their own, that they constantly ask to use it. And I'm like, bro, I just want to play I just want to play my game.
It's a good way to talk yourself into buying a second Switch.
That's exactly, yeah.
You just get you a Switch Lite.
My son's trying to save up for a Switch Lite, but he keeps spending his money on Legos, so there's a problem there.
Legos are expensive.
I keep telling him, don't you want to buy a Switch Lite? He's like, yeah, but it's Minecraft Lego set.
I was in the same boat as Double D. I bought a PlayStation 5, I think a year to a year and a half into the life. There wasn't any games that interested me at all out of the launch lineup. And I mean, his statement is still true to today. You could still play most of these games on a PS4.
Yep.
I mean, some of them are kind of sketchy now because the PS5 is starting to get into that territory where it's been out long enough where games are being very well developed for it. They're using more of its power than when games launched. So now you do have some issues with some PS4 versions of games not being on par with the
but that took
PS5
than it did for PS3 to PS4.
Yeah,
it took longer for that to happen.
Well, it took
the difference is negligible.
It took so long to even get just a exclusive PS5 game.
Yeah,
I don't even know if I could tell you which one was.
Wasn't Ratchet and Clank? Ratchet and Clank, I think, was
maybe
their first one where they were put down the hard line, and as far as I know, it didn't sell well.
That's because nobody had a PS5 at that time.
Nobody had a PS5. Well, nobody could get. I mean, not only is it negligible, right, and the lineup was a little weak, but also you couldn't find one.
Yeah,
unless you were willing to pay scalper prices. And
right.
I'm sorry, but if you're willing to pay $1,000 for a PS5, get out of here.
And that's why. That's another reason why I did not buy one at launch, because I told myself, I was like, there's no games that I absolutely have to buy this for, and I'm not going to buy one until I find one on a store shelf. So that took about a year and a half to do. I finally went to Target one day and there was one there, and I was like, okay, I'll buy it now.
I mentioned before, the Switch is actually the first console I bought launch day. And I was on the fence about that. And I wound up trading in my Wii U so that I could afford it. But funnily enough, I'm probably the one person that was like really convinced by ARMS. That was like,
Nice.
ARMS and Splatoon. It's like that was the launch lineup that like convinced me, okay, I'm going to be playing this. Because I mean, Zelda Breath of the Wild is great, but I'm like, that is coming out on Wii U, so I don't need a Switch to play it. But yeah.
You almost played Zelda on the Wii U.
Some people did.
Yeah.
Some people did. Our last comment comes from Skinny Matt. He says, whatever they want to do, it's their business. Yeah, that's very true. He also says, speaking of model iterations, when does the Commodore 65 come out?
I would absolutely get one.
I heard it got delayed because they really need Quest 65 to be a launch game. And it's not ready.
Now we're talking.
I wouldn't doubt if we didn't get some kind of Commodore system come out now, because I mean they're everything now. It's Atari's coming out with new stuff, and
well, hopefully if they do that, it's better off than the ill-fated, still in development in television revival. So
no, that thing's never coming out.
No.
The Amico.
Tommy Tallarico stole everybody's money, and you know it. Who owns the Commodore 64 IP
somewhere.
now? Who owns it?
I don't know.
Now?
They put out a mini one not that long ago. I thought about getting it.
Oh, really? No way.
There's just almost zero need to buy a mini, though. Like, you can play Commodore games on anything now.
Yeah, they're all like hardware based.
Yeah.
I have no idea, but who knows? Maybe we'll get them on NSO.
Well, we did get a bunch of Commodore games on the Wii, right?
Yeah.
Virtual Console. Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
That's going to be the next NSO app.
No, we need
that'll
TurboGrafx.
get people to subscribe.
Commodore app. That's
what people have been holding out for.
That one's going to be switched to exclusive.
I actually think I want Sega Saturn the most.
Oh
my
gosh!
Got to have the power to be able to run those Commodore games.
That's right.
Sega
Everybody's
Saturn.
like, I'm not paying for those Nintendo games again. Super Nintendo, nope. And then, but Commodore, I'm there.
I just need the Amiga version of Worms, and we'll be good to go.
Now you're talking my language. Yep. Well, that's our discussion. Thanks for all the community couchers, our commenters. Again, if you want to jump into our Discord and chat away with us, talk to us about stuff like that, head to my Blue Sky. And in my profile, there's a Discord link. My Blue Sky account is retrologicgames.bsky.social. Thanks for listening. Anybody else want to say anything before we go? I don't want to jump the gun.
I just want to plug Retro Rewind because I'm still uncontested in Kuru.
Yeah, nobody else.
Yeah, I got to get to that.
Somebody needs to beat my time.
What's this game again, Sam? Hold on. Say the name clearly so everybody knows what it is.
Kuludin.
And it's the twirling baton puzzle game.
It is a blast.
Yes.
Switch the direction of it.
As I like to joke, it's the real turn-based game. Because it turns.
I even made the contest like
as it turns.
Pretty easily accessible. It's like the third level of the game.
Yeah.
Sam has already won he beat the game first.
If you want to join that, come to our Discord. You can talk to us about Kururin.
It is a Japanese onomatopoeia for spinning.
I love
That's what the name is. Yeah.
I also love that you know that. Anywho, thanks for listening to the RetroLogic podcast. We are proudly part of the Nintendo Dads family of podcasts. If you like what you hear, check me out on Blue Sky. I already told you to do that, so I'm not going to say it again. Other than that, you can go to our website and look at all the other podcasts we have, retrologic.games, which is like, we got like a music podcast and a movie podcast, and I'm sure there's other stuff on there I don't even know about now. Crazy stuff. Go check that out. And then next time, maybe I'll come up with a new intro instead of just saying hi awkwardly. Other than that, I'll see you guys on the next one. Toodaloo.
Bye.
Bye.